I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority. I'm someone who has been a murderer for almost 20 years.
Can you say how many people might be doing crimes like you were doing?
It would be a guess, but it's not. It's far more than 35.
At the age of 16, Edmund committed his first murders. His grandparents. Edmund was admitted into Atascadero State Hospital. He entered the facility on December 6, 1964. A court-appointed psychiatrist diagnosed Edmund as paranoid and psychotic. He was then released for good behavior. When I see a pretty girl walking down the street, I think two things. One part of me wants to take her home, be real nice, and treat her right. The other part wonders what her head would look like on a stick. Edmund Kemper. In the early 1970s, the beautiful California seaside town of Santa Cruz would be drawn into panic.
One day there would be
Where did all these girls go?
Somewhere or washing in from the ocean.
Innocent women were being raped, murdered, and dismembered. 18-year-old Fresno College student Anita Luqueza vanishes. And Mary Ann Pesh, a co-ed student and a talented skier, vanishes. All along, the gruesome killer was right under the noses of those trying to catch him at the jury room bar. It became clear that someone was killing young co-ed hitchhikers when 15-year-old Icon Q disappears.
Cindy Shawl, 18 years old and babysitting to earn her way through college, goes missing. 23-year-old Rosalind Thorpe vanishes from the Santa Cruz campus.
21-year-old Allison Liu disappears forever. In April 1973, as part of a firearm background, Detective Michael Alufi would come face to face not with a violent mastermind murderer, but with a short-haired, conservative, polite young man. Nicknamed Big Ed, 25-year-old, 6'9", 280-pound Edmund Kemper was a regular at Cop Spot, the jury room.
A local watering hole that us police officers would go to after work and hang out and talk with us. And he was a likable guy.
The discussion became, well, who's going to go take the gun away from this guy? Because when you look at his dealer's record of sale, he's 6 feet 8.5 and 285 pounds. So he's a pretty big guy. So being the junior detective, I drew the straw. There was some apprehension involved, just due to the guy's size. Big man, big gun, and little old me.
The gun owner, Edmund Kemper, was not considered a suspect in the co-ed killings. Well, at least not now. Edmund lived with his mother in a suburban, pleasant neighborhood, but the address wasn't clear, and the detective could not find the address where the gunkeeper was at.
Had basically the same address, so we weren't sure which one was his. We were, I'm just guessing at this point, right around this point right here, when a car came around the curve and pulled up right there where that car is. I told Don, I said, let me go ask this guy if he knows where Kemper is. So as I approached the car, there was a gentleman in the car lying across the front seat with the door open, and he was fiddling underneath the dashboard. And I was just about to this point when I said, excuse me, I'd like to speak with you for a second. When he got out of the car, he got out of the car, and he got out of the car, and he got out of the car. And immediately I knew that this was Mr. Kemper, the man I was looking for, because he towered over me, and I'm 6 feet tall. In there. And so my partner and I instinctively, whether it be instinct or training, separated, and I came around to this side of the car on the trunk, and my partner was on the other side, and we had our hands on the guns. The only thing that was in the trunk was a bundle like in a blanket of some sort, a towel. He started to reach in for it, and I said, no, wait a minute, let me get it. I reached in the trunk, got the bundle, and inside of that was the weapon we were looking for. And I noticed there was nothing in the trunk, no liner in the trunk or anything. I thought that was a little strange, but we took the handgun and we left.
Alufi handed the gun in at the station and thought no more about it.
April 1973, he would commit his last most fantasized murder. He would kill his mother and her friend.
And he hadn't had any sleep for several days. And he said he had done something really bad. He said that he had killed his mother and a friend of hers. He said that they were at his house. And he asked me if I knew Mickey Alufi, and I said yes. And he says, well, my house is hard to find. Mickey knows how to find it very easily because he had been out there and had confiscated a gun.
Officers contacted Detective Alufi at his home.
I'm standing there getting all this information and giving all this information, and I have this tremendous feeling of all of the blood just rushing out of my body. It was just, oh my God, this is unreal. One of the deputies broke the back window, which is on the other side of the sliding glass door. And then we started looking to see if we could locate the bodies in the closet. We pulled back a sheet and we saw some hair and some blood.
Then Big Ed Kemper made a startling confession.
He made comments to Jim Connor on the telephone that he had killed all of the co-eds too.
What causes someone to become so gruesome? Was it his parents' divorce? His mother's constant abuse and repression? Not being able to be with his family or see outside the world? Or simply just not finding someone for himself?
She's laying there reading a paperback. As many thousands of nights before.
Young male that is engaged in fantasies that are aberrant and destructive and violent before adolescent. You're looking at an individual that has a broken home, a cold and distant mother, a absent father through divorce or just abandonment. They get into animal torturing. There are patterns that are identifiable.
Kemper grew taller, stronger, and stranger.
His mother.
And she said, oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now. Shit. I looked at her, I said, no. I said, good night. And I knew I was going to kill her. You know? And it's so cold, it's so hard. And that's the first time in 10 years I've looked at it that way. I mean, that intensely, that honestly. It hurts. Because I'm not a lizard, I'm not from under a rock. I came out of her vagina. See? I came out of my mother. And in a rage, I went right back in. For 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you. My murderous son is one of our arguments. I cut off her head, and I humiliated her corpse. It's there, you know? A 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up. And what's her closing words? I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk. God, I wish I had.
Your grandmother and her daughter-in-law, your mother, were two women very important in your life, and you killed them both. Could you say what they were like that led them to the same fate?
same thing that kept them from ever being friends. They were both aggressive, matriarchal women. They'd been the daughters of strong matriarchal women. I still love my mother, and it's hard for somebody to comprehend that you murder your mother through love. It isn't a rational process. It's a very painful process. It isn't rational, and I've got to still live with that.
Why did you wind up giving yourself up?
It had to stop. It had to stop. Once my mother was dead, there's almost a cathartic process at that point. I got physically ill right then when she died, when I murdered her. And once she was dead, there was no way I could back out. I backed down from giving up 1,000 times. You know, I used to get drunk and go sit out in front of the sheriff's department in a parking lot across the street on one of those old concrete parking berms. And I just sit there and say, no, I still can't. The clanging doors, I can still hear them. No, because they'll never open again. You know, so I rationalized that to give up would be insane. To give up would be crazy.
Could Edmund's mother have been the sole purpose of all his gruesome murders?